Yeah. Well, Dr. Avery Neal, thank you so much for coming on the Listening Bee today. And you've helped thousands of women answer the question that no one dares to ask about, which is, if he's so great, why do I feel so bad? Which is also the title of your amazing book. So thank you for being here today and taking the time to talk about this.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Yay. So I wanted to ask first, for people that aren't as aware about psychological abuse, what are the dangers of it, and why is it so, impossible to detect?
Absolutely. So, psychological abuse is prevalent in all types of abusive relationships. So, it's seen as sort of the foundation for physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, verbal abuse. Every type of abuse has psychological abuse at its core foundation. Yes, and so it's extremely important to understand that piece because that's actually what allows the person to kind of increase the level of aggression or abuse in the relationship without the victim of the abuse or the recipient of the abuse often even realizing it, especially if it's a more coercive, sort of subtle type of abuse. So that's why I think it's so important to kind of be talking about psychological abuse, what it looks like when there are less overt forms of abuse that are happening in the relationship, when there aren't bruises or name calling and that type of thing.
Right. No, thank you for that explanation. I never thought and came to remember that it's the foundation of all different types of abuse. It stems from this. So it's kind of the biggest abuse there is. And I think I heard you say this statistic one time that over 50% of Americans have experienced psychological abuse. And that's 1 in 2 people, which is crazy to me. But a lot of people don't realize it because it disguises itself in healthy relationships. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. So how does it disguise itself, and how can we pick it out?
Absolutely. So good job remembering that statistic. It's a sobering statistic for
Yeah.
sure. And so really what happens is that the relationship starts off, just like another relationship, and then within time, some of this the unhealthy stuff starts to begin and starts to show up. And usually the person doesn't sort of show these unhealthy behaviors until you're more and more committed to the relationship. So I like using the analogy of boiling the frog slowly. If you throw a frog into a boiling pot of water quickly, it jumps out, right? But if you put the frog in there and let the water warm up slowly, the frog eventually boils without even realizing it. And so that's exactly what happens in abusive relationships. There are so many interchanges that are good or that are seemingly loving. And this kind of starts to show up where the relationship may be even super amazing, and this is more terms are coming onto the scene around like love bombing and some of these types of things where the person is so into us and that feels so good, they seem so captivated by us, that it really is appealing, and it's hard to sort of imagine the relationship not working out because it feels so good. But then what happens is little by little, it's interspersed with some of these, unhealthy episodes or more overt type of abuse, or even some of the unhealthy behaviors that are more covert start to show up, and then they become more and more prevalent, and then they escalate over time. Um,
Wow. So we're slowly getting used to it in small dosages until we think it's normal.
Exactly, exactly. And usually it's done in such a way where we're starting to question ourselves. So I think you'd kind of ask sort of what are some of the ways that this happens. A big one is through humor. So sort of undermining a person using humor or making fun of them, sort of put downs, that type of thing. That's different from just joking around with somebody and everybody laughs and, we can laugh at ourselves, and, some of that can be endearing. This is a very different thing. This is sort of done as a way to humiliate or degrade the other person. And so when the person says, hey, this is hurtful, or please don't do this, that boundary is not respected. In fact, often, the abusive person will double down and do it even more. Whenever you call out any kind of behavior that's hurtful, that person, is not displaying empathy, but in fact, when there's a boundary that's in place, the abusive person kind of doubles down and really it gets worse, and the conflict and the abusive type behavior gets worse.
Right. So those are like the people that are like, oh, it was just a joke. Why can't you take a joke? Blah, blah, blah.
Exactly, exactly. And, humor's a way to do that. Even sort of the sort of constructive criticism or finding ways to kind of put you down. Those are all kind of red flags earlier on. And then these sort of tactics escalate. And then, I would say a big one that starts to happen is undermining your support system and your achievements. So, like undermining your friends and family, trying to kind of drive a little wedge there, even sort of putting them down or making you sort of question your friends and family, or think maybe they're not so great for whatever reason. But driving little wedges there in your closest relationships in an attempt to over time to isolate you, that's often another indication, as well as undermining or putting down your achievements, your goals, your dreams, any sort of thing that happens to you that's good or that's an accomplishment. Then that can be sort of a threat to the abusive person, because it sort of builds you up, it helps your confidence, and makes you less dependent on that abusive person. So that's another thing that's commonly seen.
Wow, yeah, it's extremely covert or subtle, like you say, and it fascinates me because we get to a point where we trust that person, and then
That
that's when, what they say starts impacting us, so then we start believing it, and then we go against our own intuition, and that shifts our entire lives.
Exactly. That's exactly right. You brought up two really key factors here. One is, you trust this other person, so you think, because there have been so many good interchanges, or there's been closeness in the relationship. A lot of times these relationships are really, really intense, and they're really, really good, but they're also very, very painful, and also very, very bad. And so that good feels so good to us that we keep kind of chasing that, or wanting to get back to that in the relationship. And we trust that that's the person that we know, or that we fell in love with, and et cetera, et cetera. And so we keep trying to get back there in the relationship, even though this person may be doing more and more things that are harmful to us or hurtful to us. But it goes against that belief that, wait a minute, I can trust this person. This is somebody that loves me, who cares about me, who has my best interest at heart. So the things are at odds, the behavior and what we believe we know about the person, those two things are at odds, and that's hard to get your mind around when it's happening to you.
Yeah, the words versus actions.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, you hit on another really big word, which is
Good.
intuition. I think that that's so important. So a lot of times we'll justify what's happening, or we'll think that we, understand where our partner is coming from, but maybe we're feeling something different in our bodies. So maybe we have a sick stomach, or maybe we're getting migraines, or we feel panicky. These are important things to pay attention to, and our intuition is often spot on. We just choose to kind of dismiss it.
No, I had a thought about that earlier, and I was like, women were labeled as being too emotional very, very often. So now we blame things like, having that gut feeling or being off about something on, oh, my period's coming up, it's whatever, and things like that, when it's really something we should be paying attention to and honoring and listening to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what you see a lot in these kinds of relationships is actually the victim of the abuse blaming themselves for what's happening in the relationship.
Yep.
So that's very, very common. So you often get, with somebody that's abusive, they typically don't take responsibility for their behavior, or if they do, it's not. It's when they're sort of called out or they're backed into a corner, and then they may change the behavior temporarily, but then they go right back to what they were doing. And so there's a lack of responsibility. There's a lack of accountability. Typically, what's seen is they blame the victim for what's happening. So it's always somebody else's fault or the victim's fault, and there's a lack of responsibility on the abuser's side. And so what happens is that most of us are wired to want to make the relationship healthy and happy and to meet our partner's needs. And so, you kind of keep working harder and harder in this relationship in an effort to make it better, get it back to where it maybe once was, or where you need it to be. And so then maybe you keep apologizing or saying, okay, I can do better, or I can do this next time, or I can do that next time, in an attempt to get the relationship back where you need and want it to be. Um, but what's important to recognize is, in an unhealthy relationship, that's not the abusive person's goal. So you can't ever really get there.
Right. Now it sounds like what the victim, or how you would say, is trying to balance it out. So then they put in 75% when the abuser is putting in 25%. And it's really healthy relationships would be 50-50 on a lot of things. So
Exactly.
it's an interesting point. And when we talk about intuition, have you seen like or practiced a specific tool that has helped you harness or helped you see other women harness their intuition and in a specific way that they know like what to do in certain situations and know if they're being psychologically abused?
Absolutely. So there are two, I think, really important pieces to just kind of keep coming back to as a matter of routine. And one is, uh, listen to your intuition. Don't talk yourself out of it. So that
Yeah.
way you start to develop a stronger relationship with yourself and a deeper trust within yourself. So I think to start out, that's important to just kind of give almost make a commitment to yourself that, okay, I'm going to listen to my intuition, I'm going to honor it. And so one of the best ways to do that is to tune into your body. The body doesn't lie. It's interesting, we will make allowances for people, make excuses for people. Women and girls are really good at this in an effort to be sort of quote unquote nice.
Yeah.
um, and so what happens is we're so conditioned to doing that that we often just sort of automatically dismiss whatever feeling we're having in our bodies. And so it's really, really important to sort of even scan your body and think, okay, what am I feeling right now? Do I feel calm and relaxed in my body? Or do I have a knot in my stomach? Do my shoulders feel tight? Maybe do I feel sort of afraid or nervous or like I'm walking on eggshells? Am I afraid of my partner's reaction? Um, or another one that's really common, especially kind of further into the relationship when there's been more trauma, shut down and detached. Do I feel sort of this numbness and detachment? Because that's also important to pay attention to. So these sort of bodily clues are really important to kind of tune into, and then to remind yourself, my feelings are enough. I don't have to have, tangible proof. I don't have to have, um, evidence. I'm not in a courtroom. I don't have to prove my case where I have to explain why I feel this way. My feelings just are what they are, and it's enough. They're valid. They're important to pay attention to.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing those two. That was extremely eye-opening for me, especially around the numbness one, because I tend to like shut down whenever I get in like an uncomfortable space, but I didn't know that that could be like something I need to listen to myself about and not be like, that's not me. That could be my body trying to protect me from something else. So thank
Absolutely.
you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, I had a follow up because a lot of times, so if you know that you're in a bad relationship and it's like a boyfriend or a girlfriend, it's easy to leave that because they're not family. But what do you do in the case where it's like maybe you're a teenager and you have parents that you're living with, or it's a family member that you can't escape?
Yes. Oh, I think this is such an important question, and thank you for
Thank you.
asking this. This is a heartbreaking thing, and a lot of children and teenagers are in this situation. When we're young, we can't control our environment, and we're sort of beholden to our caregivers. And so sometimes this is a situation that we can't get out of, at least not when we're young, until we're older. So the main thing that I think is really, really important, well, two things I would say. One is psychoeducation. So understanding the patterns and what's actually happening will help you to not take it so personally.
Uh-huh.
So that's a huge piece. Our parents are our first mirrors. So what they sort of reflect back to us is what we begin to believe about ourselves. So if we have a parent that's really supportive and gives us lots of real praise and really loves and respects us, we begin to value ourselves. We see ourselves as a really worthwhile human being who's good in the world. When we have a parent who is very critical, demeaning, puts us down, is abusive, we begin to see ourselves in that way. And so this can be really hard when we're little, growing up with this, to have confidence and self-worth. And to understand that this is actually an issue within our parents, not within ourselves. Um, so I think the first step is just understanding some of these patterns, because it helps to depersonalize what we're being told. We understand, okay, wait a minute, this is actually coming from a set of symptoms that my parent has, or my family member has, not that I'm inherently bad or wrong or unworthy. Um,
Wow.
so that's kind of the first thing that I think is really important, to just sort of gain that objectivity, to the extent possible. And then the second piece to it that comes as a follow-up is really doing everything you can to build up your confidence and self-esteem and self-worth outside of that person.
Mm.
So outside of
How
that
did you
relationship.
do that?
Well, tuning into what feels good. Where do I feel safe emotionally? Who are the people that make me feel seen, loved, and valued for who I am?
Yeah.
What are the activities or the places that make me feel really safe and calm and secure? Any of these types of things that build our confidence within ourselves and strengthen the relationship that we have within ourselves. Those are important things to kind of keep going back to. And I think that's even more of a challenge now with young people who might be in this situation with so much exposure to social media and just sort of that type of screens in general. Um, we're flooded with these images that are either unhealthy and sort of maladaptive coping skills, which can be a really self-destructive path that a lot of people who are hurting choose. And or we can look at all these people who seem like everything is perfect because, in the picture on the video, everything looks great.
Wow.
And that's just not the reality. So it can make us feel, it can make young people
Yeah. Oh, you're
be,
shuttering.
sorry, I had a
No, no
call
problem.
coming. So those would be things that I would say are really important to kind of pay attention to
Yeah.
as a young person going through this, figuring out, where do I really feel seen, valued, loved, safe? And if you don't have someone in your life that makes you feel that way, a trusted adult or a friend, finding something or an activity or interest or passion where you can escape, but it's healthy, it means something to you, it matters something to you, and it's a positive in your life.
Wow, that's an amazing tip. I think that a lot of teenagers, though we realize social media is the highlights of a lot of people's lives, our brain doesn't know that, and our subconscious just goes, we need to be this, and it's really difficult to, and then our confidence and self-worth goes down. So that was an amazing tip to find like that passion or person that is truly authentically giving you love and joy and confidence in yourself. I love that. And I wanted to ask a follow up a little bit about AI. Like, how do you see AI impacting this? Because I know a lot of people are starting to have conversations with it. Do you think that it can help people and humans build that sort of confidence up, or do you think that it's gonna flip it and it's gonna go down? What is your view?
Well, this is a great question. And, the AI is such a topic of debate right now.
Yeah.
I would say it's a mixed bag. So on the positive side, I think people are getting more psychoeducation, let's say. I mean, as there's more information available. People are learning, it's at their fingertips. They can ask questions and have an immediate answer. Now, the quality of that information kind of can vary, but at least people have access to information. So, like for instance, you can say, "What are red flags to look for in a relationship?" And all of a sudden, you've got a lot of information, right? And that can be very helpful. So in that regard, I think it can be really good. The concerns around AI are, one, it doesn't have the sophistication, at least not yet, to pick up on a person's tone or if they're really struggling emotionally. And so you're not dealing with sort of a human who can pick up on those cues and who can truly be responsive to what you're going through emotionally. So it's getting a little bit better with that, and so people can kind of think, oh, they can kind of form an attachment to their AI. But at the end of the day, it is a computer. It's not a real person who's responsive. And that can kind of further the isolation. So one of the things that I see is sort of a growing trend in younger people, especially, um, it's an easy escape to turn toward technology, but we also know that makes us feel more isolated and alone too, because we're not having that real connection with someone. And so we see depression and anxiety rates going up, and they're directly correlated to the amount of time the person is on their screen. So,
Wow.
and it's particularly when they're looking at social media. And so, what I very strongly believe is we need to have sort of more of a push to building better one-on-one human connections, especially in young people, because this is such an important, I mean, a sense of belonging and connection is one of our very basic human needs for all of us.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And you've been like saying so many amazing, deep things that people really, really need to realize, especially at my age. Like having that real, authentic connection is extremely important. Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you have love and belonging is one of them. And a lot of
Exactly.
people mistake getting it through social media or through talking to an AI, but it's not the same at all.
Exactly. And it's deceptive because it feels like sort of a social activity. It feels like
Right.
you're connecting, but the problem is it's in a whole different way. And our brains are wired for real experiences and real connections and interactions. And so it just doesn't quite cut it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you opened my eyes up to so many things during this, and I'm sure that the
Well,
audience has gained so much value from everything that you shared. So I want to thank you so much again for sharing everything from, things about your book and how that influences people's relationships to how teenagers are and families and how social media is impacting us. So thank you. And let me know if you're ready for our previous guest's question.
Absolutely, go for it.
Okay, great. This one was an awesome one as well. So this question is, if you had every confidence that you could achieve something and have guaranteed success, what would it be and why?
Oh my goodness. Well, that's amazing. That's a really, really great question.
Great.
These are kind of hard to think of on the spot, aren't they?
Yes, that's the point.
Yes, yes. I tend to be kind of shy and a little more introverted, even though I love people. So I think if I had all the confidence in the world, I would probably be getting out there and doing more public speaking and talking to larger groups of people about this stuff because I think it's really important and much needed. But I tend to be more shy. So if I had all the confidence in the world, I would be able to snap my fingers, overcome all of my shyness, and be able to do more of that. And um, traveling is always something that I love to do too. So I would probably somehow incorporate that to more traveling as well.
Oh,
So
that's beautiful. And
yeah.
you've already influenced so many women's lives, and I have no doubt that you could do that. I think that would be
Oh,
amazing.
that's very, very kind. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And that is a great question.
Yeah. Well, thank you so, so much again, Dr. Avery
Thank
Neal. I wish
you.
you an amazing day.
Well, thank you for the wonderful work you're doing. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
You too.